Hey YouTube, Chicken Shub here with a review of the majority of the first wave of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows basic 5-inch figures, and they're actually pretty cool. I've always collected the Nickelodeon series of the basic figures, and I love them. There's a wide variety of characters. And I unfortunately didn't really pick up any of the first movie. I enjoyed the first movie, for sure, but I just never really got any of the figures of it. And this time around, Jack Specific decided to be really awesome and send me the Turtle Tactical Truck, which we'll be taking a look at in the next video. And with the truck, they sent me 2 turtles, Shredder, and a foot soldier, which was great, because I had some turtles, and I had some good guys, I had some bad guys. But then, you know, I'm like, well, I at least need the other 2 turtles. And then I might as well get Bebop and Rocksteady. Then I might as well get Krang. And at that point, I might as well get Splinter and Casey too. And here we are. So, these do average retail for $8.99 a piece. Some places charge $9.99 a piece. Toys R Us. But, at the very least, normally $8.99 a piece. Huge thanks to a Meyer sale. They had figures marked 2 for $8. So $4 a piece. So I was able to clear out the collection. There are a few more figures that aren't available in this review just because I really didn't want them. Variants of Mikey, Raph, and Leo in disguises. Mikey's a pirate. Raph is in a wingsuit, which is a reference to the movie. He never has a wingsuit though. And Leo is just in a street geared disguise. I'm not really big on those variant figures, so I did not pick them up. But here are all the different characters. What we're going to do is we're going to start with Leo, work our way through the Turtles, and then Splinter and Casey, and then start with Shredder and work our way through the villains. Probably ending with the Foot Soldier because he's kind of bad. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start with Leo. Alright, so here's Leo, and he's probably my favorite of the figures. He's very bare bones. He doesn't have a whole lot of the whole movie aesthetic with the clothes going on. I mean, he's got pants and stuff, but he is very bare bones, and it looks really nice. In terms of most of these figures, I'm only going to go off the articulation on Leo until it changes with the human design ones, and I will get to that probably when we get to Casey, I think is the first instance. But articulation-wise, each of the heads are on a simple ball joint. So you get all sorts of movement there. Pins and swivels for the arms. So full range of motion right there. You do get a swivel as well as a pin and swivel elbow joint right there. Rotation in the hands, even though his hand's in a really weird position. I just realized that. And again with the pin and swivels right there in the hip, as well as a swivel right up in there. So all sorts of movement in the leg, a single pin swivel system joint in the knee, and no real movement in the foot. So that's the basics for articulation on most of the bad guys and the Turtles. Human guys are a little bit different. And it's not bad for the Turtles. My main complaint on the articulation of these guys is just the way that the legs are designed. There's a pin and swivel right here. And thankfully, they can move like this, so it isn't really that bad on the Turtles. The Turtles, well, don't cross your legs like that, that's weird. The Turtles can still get a pretty wide range of articulation, and he can even swing back and almost grab his sword. So that's kind of cool. So speaking of, all the Turtles have their normal standardized weaponry. So Leo has his swords, you can slide those out and have him wield the double swords, the double katanas, right there. So really cool, like I said. The detail's pretty good. Obviously, with most of the Playmates toys figures, because of their normal, pretty budget price point, there are missing paint applications, of course, but I think overall, at the end of the day, Leo ends up looking really, really solid. Now, all of these guys, because of their lack of paint on the skin, end up looking a little bit more like a cartoon version of the movie design, which I really don't mind in the slightest. Particularly with this Leo, is just something that I really, really like. I dig his aesthetic, and I dig his design quite a bit. So the Leo figure in particular, as I said a couple times right now in the span of about a couple minutes, is pretty much my favorite of the line, for sure. So, really cool with Leo. Here's Donnie, and Donnie's not bad. Let me move that. That actually doesn't even go there. Donnie's pretty neat. I've always related to Donnie because I was always kind of the tech guy of my friend groups, and just an overall smart person in school. So I can relate to Donnie. Now, he has his bow staff, which in the movie is kind of more like an electrical taser sort of staff, and that's represented through the little grippy thing up here. I don't know what to call it. Over here, he does have headphones attached to his backpack that come right off. Do they actually fit his head? They can actually fit his head. I feel like I'm bending the plastic way too much on those, but they do actually fit his head, so it can plug right back in there. Nothing else really comes apart or anything on his big mobile technical backpack of Donnie-ness. But there we go. So articulation is, like I said, the same. However, his leg articulation doesn't want to really work as well as Leo's does. But that's not a huge problem. Donnie's not going to get into too wild of battle poses, because he's going to hang out and do all the techie stuff. Now, Donnie includes a drone. The drone of which is used, I think, a couple times in the movie, if I remember correctly. So he got his little drone. I haven't found a way to really attach the drone to Donnie in any sort of place for storage. So it's just kind of there, but it does have a little camera attached to it and stuff, so it's neat. Unfortunately, none of these figures really come with any sort of instructions or anything to tell you where to put things, so you just kind of have to wing it. The drone does conveniently fit right on Donnie's head, so you can do that if you want to. So there is Donatello. Here's Raph, and right off the bat I want to say Raph includes these little like mountain ice pick climber sort of weapons, and I'm not really sure where to put them. If you flip him around and remove his sai, which we will put in his hand momentarily, another thing about the Donnie figure, there's nowhere to put the bow staff besides in his hand, but he's got these little grippies on his thighs back here, as well as two little grips on the back of his sort of, what do you call them? Little clippy things. I don't know. But you can fit the size back here if you want, but due to the way sais are designed, they don't really lend themselves well there. So it leads me to believe that the sais are supposed to be put into the leg holsters right down here, which is easier said than done, given the fact that he's a turtle and he's got a giant shell. And then these are supposed to fit back here, but the grips are so small, they like don't really fit anywhere, and they look really dumb. So I'm gonna ignore those weapons. I'm not a huge fan of the like additional weapons for Raph, because he didn't really need them, I don't think. I'm not even sure if they were used in the movie. I don't recall. There was a moment where I had to go get more popcorn because I like popcorn. So I missed a couple minutes there in Brazil, but at the very least, here is Raph with his size. Really cool. Like Leo, his articulation is pretty great for those battle poses. Not as much articulation in the head as Leo because of just the way he's designed, being a more bulky character because of his strength. But again, a really neat design. I like Raph in the movies. Raph was probably my favorite turtle of the bunch in the movies, besides Mikey, of course. So speaking of Mikey, here he is, and Mikey's bonus accessory is this little skateboard. And while it's not really so much a skateboard in the movie, it's this really awesome hoverboard that I really am glad that they gave him, because it added a lot to his action scenes. And so you got the little skateboard, there's just little holes in his feet, and they just plug right in, and he can roll around down there. Unfortunately, he carries the skateboard a lot in the on his back in the movie, and you can't really do that here. If we take off the nunchaku there, like there's nowhere to really put it on his back, and that's a bit of a shame. I really wish you could store it back there, because like I said, he has it on his back for a majority of the movie. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But at the very least, you do get the nunchucks and nunchaku that can slide right into his hands. He'll hold this one underhand, just like that. I love Mikey. Mikey's great. Mikey's always filled with humor, and that's what I like most about his character, because I like characters that make me laugh. So I've always really liked Michelangelo. So pretty cool. His little sweatshirt jacket sort of thing does get in the way of leg articulation. You can still, there we go. You can still get up a pretty fair amount, but you can't really go backwards with his leg articulation, which isn't too big of a problem, but it is something worth noting at the very least. So pretty cool. They did a good job with Mikey, and like I said, I really like the fact that he ended up coming with his little hoverboard. Well, it's a skateboard here, but it's a little hoverboard from the movie, so that was really neat at the end of the day. Alright, here's Splinter, and I'm really not sure what's different between this Splinter and the original movie Splinter, because like I said earlier in the video, I didn't actually get any of the first movie figures, unfortunately, and they're pretty hard to find now. But here is Splinter. He's not in the movie a whole lot, spoiler alert, but he does share some screen time quite a bit and actually has some pretty neat scenes. His accessories include a handheld sheathed katana, and of course you can take that out, and I will show that off in a second, as well as a cane because he's old. He's Splinter, he needs a cane to walk. But yeah, you can take out the sword. If you don't want him to hold on to the sheath, you can plug the sword in. He can wield the sword, though he doesn't really have any, again, spoiler alert, he doesn't really have any fighting scenes in the movie. But there you go, so you can have the sheathed sword or the unsheathed sword in his hand. A nice little figure, just like most of the Splinter toys released, because he has robes and stuff, he doesn't really have much in the way of articulation. He doesn't actually even have knee joints or anything. You can kind of see up his little, what's it called, robe. I don't know why I had to think of the word robe, but it's not a bad figure by any means. It's just with a design and a character like Splinter, you're not going to get a really diverse and fun to play with action figure. But it's Splinter. If you got the Turtles, you definitely need Splinter. So there you go. Oh, Casey. Okay, as a huge fan of Arrow, I was really excited when Stephen Amell got the part of Casey. He did a really great job in the role, particularly the way Casey was written in this movie. I thought he did a pretty great job, but at the very least, I was excited for the figure because, hey, I could add a little Stephen Amell to my figure collection. But alas, the mask does not come off, so you're stuck with masked Casey. But a figure is supposed to be released, from what I've seen, that has Casey's human face, which I may or may not pick up in the future, but it doesn't really look like Stephen Amell, so I don't know if I'm going to bother or not. But here's the rundown on Casey. Of course, you get a hockey stick, because what would Casey be without a hockey stick? And with most figures of this sort of variety, the weapons are very thin, rubbery plastic, and very, very much pliable. And because of that, it is really hard to try to get a decent pose in which he's holding the hockey stick kind of remotely how you would hold a hockey stick, while still not bending it out of proportion. So you're not really going to get a whole lot of awesome like battle dynamics with this guy or anything like that. His bonus accessory is kind of something that really wasn't needed for this figure. But at the very least, I'm just going to get rid of the hockey stick for now, just to get them out of the way. Are these little skate things, which is something that happens in the movie. It's not really relevant or anything like that, but those just slide onto his boots. I think I have them right. Again, none of these figures have instructions, so I'm not really sure. But those just slide on and off his feet. I'm not going to bother keeping them on anymore. I was just keeping them on for the demonstration of this video. And here's where things get tricky with the human figures. Obviously, head's on a ball joint and everything else is the same up here, which is perfectly fine. I don't have any problems with the upper torso of this figure. When you get down to the bottom, however, is where things get really weird. They've got the same sort of setup for the legs, which works fine for the Turtles because of how big and bulky they're designed, but does not work for these human figures because they're now stuck in this weird sort of straight up position. And so if you want your figures to stand single file and just kind of look very not menacing or not in battle, it's great. But if you want them to actually be in a battle pose, getting them in one is going to be a chore. And I don't think you're really going to get there with Casey. The leg articulation is not really so much hindered in the fact that the pin going forward and back is fine, but there is no side-to-side leg motions. So you're stuck with this weird kind of cross-legged by bending the plastic, but not cross-legged, but widespread by bending the plastic, but then just kind of goes back into place, and you have to bend it to try to get a leg lift, and it just doesn't work. I'm not sure what they were thinking in terms of designing the articulation for the legs of these human figures, but it makes the Casey figure just really, really not fun. So between this one being stuck in the masked form, which honestly is not in the movie for that long, and these really poorly designed legs, the Casey figure I feel is sadly a pretty decent skip. When the human head one comes out, I don't think the legs are going to get any better articulation, but at the very least you'll have a human Casey head to add to your display. Well, on the body, don't just do a headless Stephen Amell, that'd be weird. Or not headless, just a bodiless Stephen Amell, that would be weird. Regardless, it's weird. Don't put heads on your collection anyway. So enough about the Casey, let's move on to the bad guys. So I'm just going to keep the meh train rolling with Shredder. Shredder's design in the movie is very, very basic. He has kind of like just this leather jumpsuit. It works. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. It is just a very basic, especially compared to Shredder's design in the first movie. But a lot of that seemed to like get retconned or just ignored. It was really weird. But at the very least, here is the figure. So he comes with a gun, which is kind of just whatever. It's not really necessary. I think it's supposed to look like the gun that he uses to mutate Bebop and Rocksteady. But we don't need it right now. We're going to give it to the foot soldier because he needs a weapon that's not a sword. So you have Shredder here, and that's fine and dandy. His claws kind of end up rotating around because they're just clips. They don't actually peg in anywhere. So those are fine, but his design on the figure is just very, very plain. Because of the lack of paint detailings, you end up just with this, he kind of just looks like he's in pajamas. Instead of like a sleek leather outfit, he ends up looking like he's in baggy pajamas. And it's kind of unfortunate. Plus, his head is covered up by the kind of ninja garb and all that, so you can't really see his face, which is seen throughout the movie quite a bit. So it's kind of like Casey in that it's sort of a bummer figure to me. The upper portion of the figure is fine, other than I would have really liked to see a human head on here. But again, these legs, you can get more bend in it than you can with Casey. These have tendencies of falling off too. But again, you're not going to get any side-to-side motion, so Shredder's stuck in these very anticlimactic, not really cool battle poses, and he likes to fall over a lot as well. So that is definitely a little bit of a bummer, because Shredder being a main bad guy, something kids are definitely going to want, and unfortunately this figure doesn't really deliver. Speaking of things that don't really deliver, I'm going to keep going with the maid train with the foot soldier figure. Same thing applies with Shredder and with Casey. The leg articulation design is just really, really bonkers. It works a smidge better for the foot soldier than it does the other figures, but not a whole lot. Not having a side-to-side movement on these legs is just really killing it. But the foot soldier's design is actually pretty good. Other than that head sculpt, those eyes will peer into your soul forever. But other than that, the body design is actually cool. It's got a lot of cloth design and a little bit more paint than the Shredder figure does. So it ends up looking pretty good. Plus, he has a little bit of foot motion back here, which is kind of neat as well. So the foot soldier figure actually isn't really that bad. So I take back what I said in the very beginning portion of this video. He's actually not that bad. He can wield the gun that Shredder uses, the Shredder figure rather, so you can do that if you want to. If you do not want to give him a gun, you can keep that aside, and he has a cool, maybe this gun is his. No, those are different plastic colors. Never mind, I just realized he's got a little clip here. What was that for? I have no idea. But he does have a sword right here that you can have him wield, or sheath right in there. Can this plug in right here? No. What is that for? Did I miss an accessory? I probably missed an accessory or somewhere. My bad. Anyway, so you're going to give him the gun back, because guns are foot soldier weapons, right? Sure. So he's not bad, but again, that leg thing just kind of ruins it. Alright, so Bebop and Rocksteady. Obviously, we're starting with Bebop here. These are some pretty great figures. Now, for weapons, you get a crowbar and a chain whip with a lock on it. Which is fine. They didn't really have iconic weapons or anything in the movie. They just kind of used whatever they could. So we're going to just go ahead and remove those for now. Take a look at the articulation. Some bonuses of these guys is just that, one, they're huge, which is really awesome for these figures. And kind of similar to the Turtles, it just sort of helps them look and feel like a better figure. Now, because of their size, their leg articulation is a little bit weird. You do still get a bend in the knee. It's just their knee is a really weird place. It's kind of like right above their boot. But at the very least, you do have up and forward and back. Up and forward is the same thing. Forward and back. Leg articulation right there, plus you have side-to-side motion. So thank you, Bebop and Rocksteady, for giving us that side-to-side motion that I've been complaining about for the last 10 minutes or so, give or take. But at the very least, you do have all the basic articulation up here, plus you have a waist swivel. So these guys really get the everything, other than the fact that my figure's glasses are kind of weird. Plus his eyes aren't painted. That is something worth noting. It's not really a big deal because they're covered with the glasses, but they are not painted. So despite the fact that this figure is really bulky and you're not going to get a whole lot of really awesome poses because of it, he has the articulation that I want in all of these figures. But Bebop is definitely really cool. So if we bring in Rocksteady, he's not quite as big, but same rules apply. Now he's got a barbed wire bat. He's going all Negan up in here, but we have that, and then we have a little mallet sort of thing as his weapons. But same rules apply with Bebop or Rocksteady as they did with Bebop. You got a rotation on the head, a little bit of side to side, but not a whole lot, or front and back, or side to side, whatever. And same thing up here with the arms. You got all the basic articulation there. Down here, again, you have a waist swivel, you have side to side in the leg, as well as front and back, and a knee joint. You got everything you need in the articulation of Bebop and Rocksteady. These are absolutely great figures. If you like the portrayal of Bebop and Rocksteady in this movie, definitely hunt down the figures, be it on their own or with the bike toys, because they are on bikes for a really awesome fight scene in this movie. So it's kind of worthwhile to pick up the bike toys. But Bebop and Rocksteady are definitely kind of the winners, besides the Turtles, of course, of this wave of toys for sure. They're great figures. They were really fun characters in the movie themselves, and the toys are definitely what I wanted out of all of the toys for this line. So to end the video on a really questionable note, we have Krang, who was portrayed really questionable. I don't know what to think about Krang in the movie, but I will let that opinion you guys can make for yourselves. But yeah, so the figure's really weird. I was really excited for the figure because in the box it looked pretty cool. With Krang being separate, and you had the mech suit Krang that was very 80s cartoon inspired, of course. But getting it out of the package, the magic starts to fade away a bit. You do have the ball and socket up here. This might actually be just actually this is just a swivel, really. He can't really look up. The shoulders are just a rotation. There isn't an actual like pin and swivel system up there or anything like that. So you're stuck with just swivels in the shoulders. There is no like bicep articulation or anything like that. Again, it is just a simple elbow joint right there. Nothing in the hand. Over here, you get a little bit more. Just a little bit with a pin and swivel right here in the bicep. So you do get a little bit on the right hand over here. But other than that, you're kind of stuck. And unfortunately, being a humanoid figure, he shares the same properties as Casey and Shredder and the Foot Soldier in that the legs are just abysmally designed. So it kind of stinks. You get a lot of motion here, and you do get the joint right there, and you do get a swivel right there. So you can still pull off some poses, but again, not having that side to side just really, really kind of kills this guy. But thankfully, being a big mech suit, he doesn't really need it quite as much as those leaner humans do. But he is right there. The Krang is just a little rubbery piece of rubber. Makes sense, right? With the tentacles and the brain and all that fun stuff. All the fun Krang stuff. Getting him in here is kind of a pain, because when I got him out of the box, I'm sitting here, and I'm like, how is this supposed to go? What do I do? Is this right? I don't know. So basically, to get him completely in there, what you kind of have to do is fold these little like tentacle pieces like inside the body almost, and then you have to push him in there. And it's really funny because I'm sitting here kind of trying to cram this little rubber guy inside this mech suit. And there's, it's not really a spoiler, there's a scene in the movie where he's trying to get back into the mech suit. And so he's like, oh, push me in. So the mech suit's trying to push him in. And it's like squishing his head and stuff all in there. And it was an accurate representation of me trying to get the Krang into this figure. I just couldn't really do it properly, and I completely messed that one up. But at the very least, you can see that the struggle is most definitely real. It takes a lot of fiddling to get him in there proper, but you can have the little tentacles hanging out, I guess. That's fine, whatever, it is what it is. So, there is Krang. Not awful, but not really the best either. So overall, the range of figures are kind of hit and miss. The humanoid figures are very, very much the miss. However, the 4 Turtles, Bebop and Rocksteady, are absolute gems and well worth the $8.99 price point, much less the only $4 price point that I paid for most of these figures. They're really, really great. So if you like Bebop and Rocksteady in this new movie, or you just really like one of the Turtles, or all of the Turtles for that matter, if you pick up the Turtles and Bebop and Rocksteady, they're absolutely fantastic figures for their price point, for sure. Splinter, Casey, Krang, Foot Soldier, Shredder, not so much. If you're a completionist, go ahead and pick them up. But if you're on a bit of a budget and really only want a certain select figures, the Turtles, Bebop, and Rocksteady are definitely the way to go. Love all of those figures. They did a really great job on the Turtles, and Bebop and Rocksteady are just pretty much the definition of what makes a good villain figure for these turtle figures. So, at the very least, do pick up those. Krang's not too bad, but he's not really too great either. But hey, it is what it is. A Build-A-Figure of Krang would have actually been terrific because he was so big in the movie. But at the very least, we got this little one instead. But some of them are great, some of them aren't, and that's more or less what you get in these wide wave figure sort of series. So some are gems, some aren't, and that's just how it goes. Again, huge thanks to Playmates Toys for hooking me up with 4 of these figures and starting the horrible addiction that was getting the rest of them. So thank you. Thank you. But that about does it for this review. If you like it, go ahead and blast that like button, comment below, and subscribe for more. So as always, thanks for watching, take care, and have a great one. Bye.